everyone. This is Mrs. Wells again, and I am here to read Chapter 2 of Poppy for you. The last time we were together, I read to you Chapter 1, Mr. Oakhax, and it was a pretty shocking chapter in which we met Poppy and her friend Ragweed and the other main character, Mr. Oakhax. We are going to get into the next part where Poppy is still up on Bannock Hill, and she is stuck up there. So I'm going to turn on the book now, and you can read along with me or just listen. And I probably will stop and ask some questions, and I will probably do some thinking aloud. You might have those thoughts too, and if you want to write them down, I would love to talk to you about them. You can email me and you can ask me questions, or you can tell me things that you noticed. Maybe you can do a Seesaw post, or maybe we can talk about it during one of our office hours or morning meetings. All right, let's get started. Okay. Oh, where'd it go? Chapter 2, Poppy Remembers. Remember, Poppy is still up on Bannock Hill, so she's remembering things from a while ago that happened before, but she's still up on Bannock Hill. Chapter 2, Poppy Remembers. A stinging sensation on her nose woke Poppy. She touched a paw to the sore spot and winced. Then she looked about in the dark and shook her head with confusion. Where was she? Under a piece of rotten bark? Where was the bark? On Bannock Hill. What was she doing there? She had come with her boyfriend Ragweed. Oh no, where was Ragweed? No sooner did Poppy ask herself that than the full horror of what had occurred rushed upon her. Ragweed, dead. Oof, eaten probably. Poppy closed her eyes. The sheer ghastliness of the thought made it hard for her to breathe. Then, recalling how close she had come to the same fate, she checked herself for other injuries. Though her plump, round belly was white, the rest of her fur was orange-brown. She had large ears and dark, almost round eyes, full whiskers, tiny nose, pink toes, and tail. Even for a deer mouse, Poppy was rather dainty. That means she was small. Upon examination, everything, except the nose, seemed to be intact. She stole a look from under the bark and considered her situation. She was on Bannock Hill, alone, and without permission. Oh, how she wished she were home. From her earliest days, just a few full moons ago, her parents had been teaching their litter about Mr. Oakhax. She recalled how they had lined up all 12 of them to take instruction. Mr. Oakhax, her father Lungwort lectured in his sternest voice. He was a rather stout fellow with elegantly curled whiskers and slightly protruding front teeth. His crowning glory was an ivory thimble which he had found and which ever since he'd worn as a cap. Mr. Oakhax has been here longer than any mouse's living memory, Lungwort continued. The territory around Dimwood belongs to him. Mr. Oakhax is king. And he protects us, said Sweet Cicely, Lungwort's wife and Poppy's mother. That's the most important thing. Sweet Cicely was a small creature even for a deer mouse, with soft, pale eyes and a nervous habit of flicking at her ears with her paws as if they were dusty. Protect us from what? Poppy remembered Ragweed asking. An outsider he had taken to hanging around the family. He was always asking for answers. Why do deer mouse live here and not there? Why do you folks eat this and not that? Why is your fur dark on top and white on the bottom while mine is golden? Why couldn't it be the other way around? Though these constant questions could be irritating, Poppy had to admit that she'd often wondered about the answers. Curiosity, however, was not something her parents encouraged. Poppy admired Ragweed's persistence. Mr. Rokax protects us from creatures that eat us, Lungwort answered gravely. Raccoons, foxes, skunks, weasels, stoats. One by one, he displayed pictures of these animals. Most important, he protects us from porcupines, like this one. He held up a lurid portrait of a huge black-nosed beast covered with gruesome spikes. Blood seemed to drip from its snarling mouth. The young mice gasped in dread. Porcupines are our particular enemies, Lungwort insisted. There's nothing porcupines wouldn't do to catch mice. What would they do with us then? Acorn, one of Poppy's sisters, asked in a trembling voice. First, they shoot their barbed quills into you, Lungwort said. Then they trample you, Sweet Cicely added. Finally, Lungwort concluded, they break you up into little bits and gobble you up. Now it was terror the young mice felt. All except Ragweed. Lungwort, he demanded. Other than that picture, you ever seen a porcupine? A real one? Not precisely, Lungwort snapped. But let me tell you something, Ragweed. I'd be more than thrilled to get through my whole life without ever seeing one. After all, Mr. Rokax has seen porcupines. Often. In private conversations with me, mind. These are actual personal experiences I can verify. He informed me that porcupines are not only extremely dangerous, but also devilishly sly. Take note that this judgment comes from a powerful meat-eating bird. The point is, Mr. Rokax protects us from porcupines. It was he, in fact, who was kind enough to educate us about them as well as supply these pictures. Here's the picture. Here's Lungwort with his thimble on his head, and he's pointing to the picture of the porcupine. Here's Sweet Cicely. There's Ragweed with his little earring. I'm not sure which one is Poppy. Then how come you have to worry about this dude Rokax too? Ragweed pressed. Struggling to control his temper, Lungwort tapped his thimble cap down over his forehead. Fuming, he replied, Mr. Rokax protects us from vicious porcupines only when we accept him as our ruler, that's why. All he requires is that we ask his permission whenever we move beyond the immediate area of Grey House. We have freedom to go about the old orchard, up to Glitter Creek. We can do the same for Farmer Lamount's fields, at our own risk, of course. Life is full of danger. Go beyond, however, and we need to get Mr. Rokax's permission. What's his reason? Ragweed persevered. Sweet Cicely, brushing her ears, sighed with exasperation. How Poppy, her own daughter, could take up with such an ill-mannered ruffian was beyond her understanding. All the same, she said, Ragweed, as Mr. Rokax has patiently explained to my husband, he needs to know if we're moving about, so he won't mistake us for porcupines. Asking permission is a small sacrifice to pay for our own safety. I'm going to go back here for just a moment here. Look at this. He needs to know if we're moving about so he won't mistake us for porcupines. That's confusing to me since the mice are so small and the porcupines are so much bigger. Lungwort nodded in agreement. That owl, he pointed out, has incredible vision and hearing. He can hear or see anything, even in the dark. And a good thing, too. Porcupines prowl at night. Move like lightning, Mr. Rokax says. Shoot quills without asking questions. Kill without mercy. And if the owl has incredible vision, then how would he mistake the mice and the porcupines, I wonder? No, my boy, we don't argue with Mr. Oakhacks. He's our protector. If we disobey him, break his rules, and I can't say I blame him either, he gets upset. What'll he do then? Asked Leaf, one of Poppy's brothers. He'll eat you, Lungwort replied briskly as he put away the picture of the porcupine. And, he continued, it happens. During the last year, we have lost some 15 family members. It may be presumed that all failed to ask Mr. Oakhacks for permission to go somewhere. The children were shocked into silence. Ragweed, however, spoke out again. Hey, Pops, didn't I hear you say porcupines are huge? You saw the picture, Lungwort responded, and don't call me Pops. It's common. So them porcupines are bigger than us, right? A lot bigger, Sweet Cicely said, emphasizing the lot. Well, old lady, Ragweed kept on, if them there porcupines are so huge, and we're so small, and if this dude owl has such amazing sight, how come he might confuse us mice with them there dude porcupines? You know what I'm saying? An indignant Sweet Cicely looked to her husband. Lungwort sputtered. Ragweed, for your information, proper grammatical usage is those porcupines, not them there porcupines. And while I'm thinking about it, if you intend to court my daughter, then I'll thank you to groom your hair properly when you get up in the morning. And as for that earring you've taken to wearing, I don't like it, not one bit. This family is committed to keeping up mice values and is opposed to stupid questions. With that, Lungwort stalked away, tail whipping about in agitation. I don't think he answered Ragweed's question. Do you? Now we're back to Poppy. On Bannock Hill, Poppy remembered it all. She also remembered it was Ragweed who insisted they come up the hill, but that he absolutely refused to ask Mr. Oakhacks' permission to do so. Perhaps then what occurred, horrible as it had been, had served Ragweed right. Then and there, Poppy vowed she would never leave home again. The difficulty was that at that moment she was far from home, frightened and alone. So that's where we're going to stop today. That's the end of chapter 2. And I will record another session for chapter 3. If you have any thoughts, you can write them down and we can talk about them. I will see you all later. Bye.